Welcome, everybody. It's 10:32 on Thursday morning, September 18th. This is the meeting of the Fire Protection Committee of the CSD Board of Directors. You're going to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum established. 1, 2, 3, 4 members are present. One member. Wait, 5 members are present. 20 staff is here, and there's no chair report. Staff members present include Mr. McElhenney, our general manager, who's here via Zoom. Also, Chief Brookie, fire chief, David Dodson, our confidential administrative assistant, and 4 representatives of the fire department. Looks like, why don't you sound yourselves out so I can have you on the record.
Christian Evers, Frank Brooks, Craig McGill, William Stewart.
Thank you very much, very much. So let me start with a little no chair report, but I do want to announce a amendment to the order of the items here. We are going to have a presentation from NBS, one of the consultant firms that is thinking of working with us on a benefit assessment process. And Haley, you said, I think that they'll be coming around 11 or so. Or is that what's the current plan?
45 to 11, but it looks like one of them is online already, but I think we're waiting for a second one possibly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sarah's ready, but she might be able to chime in and let us know.
I'm ready when you are, and Amanda had a conflict, so I will be the only one joining you today.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Right.
Long story short, we were going to rearrange the agenda and the regular business items so that 4A would be moved. However, we don't need to do that. So I guess we go ahead with the order of March that we have already. Are there any ad hoc subcommittee reports? And I think this does not include Mr. Pearson's report, obviously.
We were going to have a discussion. We're going to do that now or some 4B.
Oh, you're gonna have, the again, your subcommittee, Mr. Heinrichs and Mr. Haluka, that'll be item 4B. Yeah, we discussed that. That's what I was assuming. Next item, committee member and staff communication, which is where members of the committee can report briefly on their activities or ask questions they might have. And where staff, either Mr. McElhenney or Chief Brookie especially, can report on any recent activities of interest that are relevant to this committee. So I'll start with Mr. Pearson.
So the Fire Safe Council met yesterday. And one of the first item on the business was a report on the Feed and Grain fire in Templeton. Very interesting report. They actually had video of the fireworks being shot at the roof of the building. They had a tape of the fire starting inside because there was a camera there too. Anyway, they were very fortunate. It was 4th of July and their fire chief made a decision that all hands on deck. They had 10 people at the station ready to go. And that was a damn good thing. They were able to put water on the fire in 4 minutes of receiving the alarm. A lot of that was because their station is 3 blocks from where the fire was. Okay. But it was a very good presentation on how that fire just kept going and going and going, and even while they were demoing, they would start on fire again because of all the grain that continued to be outside of it. So, second item that I'd like to report on, especially for Tony's notification, is Fireside, the software company that is doing our chipping. Okay. And we have enough people now signed up for chipping that we're going to have another chipping event It'll be coming, they'll be scheduling it soon. It'll probably be in mid-October. So if you have stuff shipped, now's the time to go ahead and get it out there and get registered for that. But that same company is working on a standard defensible space inspection. That would be computerized, that you would be able to go to site, the residents, and actually have the complete rundown of what you're supposed to inspect and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, what kind of inspection?
Defensible space.
Principal space inspection
Checklist and, the whole gamut of information and everything. It would be a printable report, be sent to the homeowner, that kind of stuff.
So who does does the homeowner do the report or does the system?
Well, yeah, the system would generate the report based upon the report. So they're working on it, and once it's complete, the Fire Safe Council is gonna look at it and see if it's worthwhile for them to endorse it or to buy it and have their people use it. Okay. So that was interesting sidelight. I don't know when that's gonna be available, but it's something that you might wanna.
Good, thank you.
think about. Okay. Yep, I got it.
Anything else?
I'll just add, we continue to work, the community liaisons continue to work with Chief Berkey on building up that program. We're using the boil the water incident as a teachable moment to get people on alert. So really, it's a very easy question. Do you get the alert? They say yes, they're on the alerts. If they say no, tell them how to get on the alerts. So that's kind of our carpe diem moment for this week and next week.
Got five. Yeah. Yeah, serious.
fireworks.
I alert.
We got.
I like. Right after each other email. I got way more. But I was the first set. It just kept coming, so.
Well, we're emphasizing the alerts and getting on the CCSD website. And then, other things, ready dot slow, and then Red Cross inspection, but those are the priorities.
Next door, people had a lot of questions on Nextdoor. I'd go on there and let the people go, what happened? Where's the water? And then they also go to.
Exactly, all of that
website,
information
but-
is
But
posted.
if they're not on there, they're not understanding what's going on. Cause I got the boil water, then I got the safe to drink, and then, and the other people going, oh, can I use the water? And how does it work? And then all on
A lot
Nextdoor,
of
they're
people
trying to
are
figure it out.
responding to those posts saying, if you go on the CCSD
Right.
website, ...
Yeah, no, I did see that. I was just saying, it's just like that, the people that aren't getting the alert aren't getting anything. So it's like, I was,
That's a good ask. Good, I mean, it's a little off, a little off topic of
Yeah.
fire. But Mr. McElhenney's here. He could maybe talk about how many people we actually reached, because I know that there were flyers put in the mailboxes, among other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, so the reason some of you got repetitive emails is I asked Mrs. Dodson to hit the entire subscription list. So if you're subscribed to board agendas or the fire committee or finance, or if you have all the boxes checked in terms of your subscriptions to our web blasts, then you got multiples. But what I wanted to do is make sure I hit everybody. So if they weren't signed up for one section, but were signed up for another, I wanted those folks to get those alerts. So several community members expressed some frustration about getting repetitive emails on the same subject. As far as how many people reached, I'd have to ask Mrs. Dodson how many people are actually subscribed to our mailing list. And then we also hit social media in terms of Nextdoor. And then that was also shared in forums on Facebook. So Cambria Currents and Cambria Open Forum. So it did get out that way. And then we mobilized the CERT team with the fire chief and the water department to go door to door and start knocking on those 1,500 residents that were affected by the boil notice. In addition to that, the chief and I spoke early in the morning once we were notified about the eventual boil notice that was going out, along working with our water team who was working with the Division of Drinking Water. The chief contacted the Office of Emergency Services and started working on getting them ready to send their notifications. And there was, because it was a precautionary boil notice, we wanted to get a WIA out, but they didn't recommend that because there's a 10-mile radius. So that WIA would have alerted everybody all the way up into Paso Robles, Tascadero, Morro Bay, or Cayucas. It would have said Cambria is under boil notice, but it would have gone outside our town limits, so to speak. So we're working through that process with limited staff. It was very difficult to get the door-to-door notices and the door hangers out, but they did a good job with it, along with mobilizing CERT. And then obviously, as Tony is saying, it's super important, and this is a good lesson for us as a community to know that emergencies aren't just fire. They're not just earthquake. They're not just tsunami. It can be an issue like this where there's an issue with our drinking water, and this system that's being stood up in terms of emergency preparedness and these emergency preparedness groups. This is a great example of getting plugged in to the CCSD so we can get that message out. And with that, I can answer any questions.
You'll have more to say about this at the board meeting, obviously, next month, right? Yeah, because it's good. There are a number of questions. I don't want to get too much into it now, but if anybody has any questions, brief questions, they can be answered about it, especially, obviously the emergency response system we've got now. Any questions? Mr. Chief Rookie?
The only thing I'd like to add is when I contacted OES, and that kind of referred or alluded to the WIA versus the alert slow type notification that went out, and the discussion I had with the OES duty officer was they were able to see our communities, how many in that area had signed up for reverse 911 and alert slow, and there was a significant amount of people in that area. So that's where they were saying, hey, let's do that instead, because you guys actually have most of the population in that area are. Whereas the WIA would have reached every single person, but it would have been, like I said, like Matt said, 10-mile radius. So other people, and it would have just caused a little bit too much. If it was like an actual public health emergency, then that would have been a little bit different. But those were conversations that we did have with county OES.
I don't know how many calls when I got a phone call, actually two robocalls announcing the boil order, which came about 2 or 3 hours after the event occurred. And then I got one, actually two, one in English, one in Spanish, to announce the lifting of the boil order pretty much in a timely way. And those are from county OES, right? That's the alert slow system.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with redundancy.
Yeah, I don't either, actually. No, I think it's good to have all that stuff.
Hey, Chief, I was in the room where CERT was coming in to get all their flyers and stuff. We had stacks of them. CERT was coming in, passing them out. I was helping go down the list of what streets we accomplished.
Right.
And most CERT members reported back that everybody had already known about it except for just a couple people.
Yeah.
So by the time we got around passing out, whether it was through social media, through the alerts, most people already knew about the boil notice. So whatever we did worked pretty well and got out to most people.
There's a lot of good neighbor to neighbor communication here. Down the street, people get out in front of their houses and start saying, you hear about this boil order?
Again, not to dwell on this, but begs the question, how were hotels in that zone, and how were they dealing with it?
The lodge was,
yeah.
Yeah, lodge is the only one,
Yeah, the lodge would have been, and I did reach out to the lodge, but the most of the concern with the VRBOs, those are the ones that we were kind of, that probably wouldn't, the residents probably wouldn't have had.
There's not a central directory of VRBO Airbnbs, right?
Not that I'm aware of. Do some looking into that and see, but I don't know.
There's a list of the.
County has the ones that are licensed.
Yeah, but there's also a
It
list.
doesn't have the ones that are unlicensed and operating.
We have, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. McElhenney, but we bill in our billing system, I think we identify VRB, like vacation rentals. They have a specific classification, and because that's how we note them as a separate category in our billing
Yeah,
summary. So I think we do have a record of them.
We do have some record of it, and that was a part of our discussion in terms of enhancing our notifications in these types of emergencies. And so what we're trying to do is integrate the fire department with the water department, specifically for these types of emergencies. And what we'll do is we'll see if we can pull that list of those areas and try to figure out a way to integrate it. Another thing that we're going to do through our Tyler system, which is our utility billing system, is there's actually a way we can opt in all of those that have utilities in their name to a text messaging system, and that system can send out a text message to the customers. And it's not cheap in terms of 10 cents per text, and you've got, we'll just call it 6,000 residents that have utility hookups, which it's not that many, but I rounded up. And that would be about $600 to send out a mass text message. And so that's something that we're going to integrate into this and use sparingly because we don't want to annoy our customers. But for instances like this, we could send those text messages out. And even if that utility, the person who's the water utility is in their name, but they don't live in the district, they might be able to contact those residents that are in those homes. And so that's one more thing that we're going to try and integrate.
Great. Thank you.
Another quick comment. I noted, I didn't know that there was a problem with the water system, but I noticed at my house, I had a significant drop in pressure. And then I got the notices after that. And I guess my question would be, if we notice something like that, would it be okay to call and say, hey, is there something going on with the water system? Because my pressure dropped, like I couldn't turn on 2 faucets at the same time and get any kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something you would contact the water department. And the reason you lost pressure is because the entire tank drained and depressurized the system. But yeah, absolutely. If you have any water issues, you can contact the on-call water number, which is on our utilities webpage, and that'll get us, and that'll alert us and start to inspect it.
Wasn't it people calling in about water pressure going away that kind of alerted you? Because it was alerted to CSD because it was in the middle of the night, wasn't it? That it happened? What did we find out? How did we actually find out about it?
It was early morning. It was probably like 5.
Yeah,
5
pretty early.
So there was probably 3 or 4 people that called the firehouse.
Yeah, right.
Or I had emails from.
Yeah, I had some things going, so I thought, and I noticed I had a broken line, so I just thought my pressure dropped because I had an open line and I had to fix it. But so I didn't pay any attention to it, but it's something that I recognized it. It just didn't click that there was a problem. So
yeah, the failure of the electronical monitoring system, the level transducer, probably happened in the middle of the night. That tank drained overnight, and then the alerts started coming into our on-call staff around 5:30 in the morning. And then that pulled in our water superintendent, which pulled in me. And so it was this trickle effect of 5:30 alert, got a hold of him at 7. I was notified at 7. And so the chief, myself, and everybody started coming in right around 7:30, on site at 8:30. And that's when everything kind of kicked off.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line is, if you notice a significant drop in water pressure, you should call it in. Yeah, good idea. Any other staff or committee member communications? Move along then to public comment, which is the time for comment on items that are under the agendas, under the committee's purview, but not on today's agenda. Is anybody here in the room interested in commenting? Online, I don't think, hey, Mrs. Dodson is managing the computer this time, so I don't see any, right? No hands up. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which consists of consideration to approve the August 21st meeting. Question, of course, as always, is do you see any need for changes, revisions, additions? Okay, so entertain a motion.
I move to approve these minutes of the August 21st meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the minutes as presented be approved. I'll call roll, Mr. Safford.
Aye.
Mr. Maluka.
Present.
Oh,
Aye.
aye.
Sorry.
Oh, wait, well, you were here.
Yeah.
Aye. Chapman. Aye. Mr. Heinrichs.
Aye.
Mr. Pearson.
Aye.
Okay, great. we'll move on to agenda item, 4A, which has to do with the, discussion, actually, two things, actually, two separate parts of this. One's a presentation, for that purpose, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pearson of his report on the process of, benefit assessment and what it entails. We have in connection with that, a presentation from one of the consulting firms that was interested in working with us, NBS. We can, they'll present, we can take questions. And then I wanted to follow this with consideration of what we want to recommend specifically in this area to the board. We'll have the presentation first with Mr. Pearson, then we'll, and the NBS representative, maybe you should turn on the camera, turn on the mic and camera for Sarah. Introduce yourself, please. Start
Hello.
with that. Yeah.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I'm Sarah Mears. I am the director of what we refer to as our district formation consulting team at NBS. NBS is a firm that specializes in revenue mechanisms for local government agencies. That is what we do all day, every day. So whether that's the special assessment, like we'll talk about for the fire services, or things like parcel taxes, community facilities districts, other types of assessment districts such as PBIDs, we do all of that. We also do things like rate studies and so forth as well. So that is our focus. We work solely with local government agencies to perform these services. I have been in this line of work and at NBS for 25 years doing this. So we've seen the assessment laws change quite a bit over that time between Proposition 218 and the aftermath of that, as well as some of the recent case law that has come out over even just the last couple of years. So very happy to be here with you and talk about the benefit assessment district, as well as any other alternative funding mechanism you might want to explore.
Thank you. Could I have the spelling of your last name?
Mares.
Great, I guessed right. Thank you very much. So we'll proceed with Mr. Pearson's presentation of his report. And then we'll have, I guess we'll have questions from the board, from the committee to both him and to Ms. Maris on the subject. So Dave, you take it away.
So I assume that everybody read the report. And basically went through the process and everything as to what goes on. I think there's a couple of areas to stress. One is this benefit assessment is a vote, quote unquote, of the property owner, not the voters. Okay, so it's the property owners who will be voting on whether pass the benefit assessment or not. It is not the vote. So if you are registered to vote here, but you're not a property owner, you don't get a say in the benefit assessment because it really doesn't affect you directly. Okay. So the individual properties, okay, are given, different values for the assessment. Okay. For instance, a vacant lot in this case may get a 1 vote. Okay, but a house of 4,000 square feet plus might get 3 votes. Okay, because the impact of what we're proposing would have a greater impact on them, so they should pay more for that service than somebody that has a vacant lot. All right. So the determination of what those values are to the different properties is why we would hire a consulting firm, because it's a very complex matter to go through and try to figure out exactly what that would be in a fair manner. Then, once that's done, the ballots are sent out by mail to the property owners. They get 45 days to respond. They send that ballot back in, okay? And the ballots are counted. Again, the property owner that has 3 votes, those 3 votes are counted, right? It's not 1 vote for that property owner. He gets those 3 votes. The guy with vacant lot gets that 1 vote, okay? And they are tallied up. And only those ballots that are returned count. Okay, if you don't return your ballot, you don't get a vote, okay? So at the end of the ballot counting, if a majority plus 1 votes for the assessment, then the assessment goes into place. And it will go into place on the next fiscal year, so the next July 1st is when it will go on the tax rolls. So that's basically a synopsis of what I wrote up and everything, and I hit the high point.
Why don't you, talk about your recommendations?
Well, my recommendation is that the first thing that the CCSD do is hire a consultant, because it is a very complex issue. You go out with an RFP, which means it's a proposal. You don't have to go with a low number. You can go interview them and decide which team of consultants makes the most sense for us, okay? My recommendation would be to hire a consultant, okay? To review not only beneficial assessment, but any other revenue generating opportunities that the district has, okay? That would include a special tax, that would include a incorporation, okay? And have them come back and basically do a first study that would come back and say, based upon your current situation, where you're at, what you're doing, this would be our recommendation of which of these paths to go down. And so that we don't waste time, quote unquote, doing one or the other, that's not going to benefit us the best. Okay, so that would be my overall recommendation, is that the firm is hired not to do the beneficial assessment, okay, but to do a assessment of which of the revenue generating ideas, okay, or paths that we could take would be the best, okay, and why? And have that discussion so that the boards would be fully informed on the best ways to go about, you know, getting the revenue that we currently need.
Okay, thank you. First of all, any questions for Mr. Pearson? The recommendation, we will be discussing that subject after we make the, get the factual presentation, but yes, I wanted to cover that very thoroughly. Any questions for Mr. Pearson before those that turn over to Ms. Meadows to add anything and talk more specifically about what the, about the process? And I think again, that question of looking at alternatives, I think which you mentioned, may be worth some, some elaboration. Ms. Maris, if there's no question for Ms. Pearson at this point, turn it over to Ms. Maris.
Thank you so much. Well, Mr. Pearson did an excellent job of explaining to you some of those mechanics about that benefit assessment. So that's really where I'll start is there are essentially 3 different revenue tools under California law now that we're in a post-Prop 218 world. Those are fees. So those are things like your property related fees for like your utility rates are considered fees. There are taxes, and that could be general property tax, or that could be something like a parcel tax, a special tax. Those are sort of synonymous words. A tax is a mechanism that is typically voted on by registered voters and requires a 2/3 vote of those registered voters. The third category is the benefit assessment. As Mr. Pearson described, this is a property owner ballot proceeding wherein the ballots are weighted by the financial obligation of each individual property and tabulated to determine whether or not you have a majority protest based on those weighted ballots. So technically it's a protest hearing. and a protest process as opposed to an approval process, but that requires not getting a majority protest or conversely having a majority approval again on those weighted ballots. So it is a really important foundational piece to understand who is casting ballots in your proceeding, whether that's your property owners or your voters, and thinking about your community and which one of those communities your particular revenue measure might resonate with more, because that's who's going to say yes or no to it. I'll spend a little bit of time on the benefit assessment. It's called a benefit assessment because the assessment amount that is charged to property owners has to be related to the special benefit that is conferred to those properties. It's also important to note that the specific assessment that allows for fire services to be funded with this mechanism only allows for funding for fire services. And that's an important distinction because that is not the only service that your fire department provides, right? There's the emergency medical component of that. So one of the things you have to do as part of this process is actually separate out some of the costs relative to the medical component of those services in order to move forward with an appropriate benefit assessment. The assessment process includes an engineer's report that is prepared by a registered professional engineer. That is not me personally, but someone at NBS is that registered professional engineer that we work with, who is making those findings of special benefit relative to each property. And again, Mr. Pearson did such an excellent job of explaining this, that you could have undeveloped property with a lower level of benefit, right? There's a different level of fire protection that occurs for undeveloped property versus a structure. And then thinking about different types of structures and what those demands are, and just comparing, say, a gas station, for example, to a CPA's office or, something like that, right? Or again, comparing that then to a residential and just sort of thinking about what those factors might be. And so that is the analysis that we would go through to develop the assessment amounts, is understanding exactly what those land uses in your community are, exactly where your fire services are located, meaning how far are each property perhaps from a fire hydrant, perhaps from your fire station, looking at all of those factors. There's a lot of data gathering that goes into that because we have to make that very clear finding of special benefit. And any portion of the budget that we have established that is not determined to be special benefit is considered general benefit. And funding for that particular dollar amount has to come from another source. That could be your general fund. That could be, other sources of funds that you have. And please stop me if you have questions, and I'll maybe pause here. Those are kind of basics around the benefit assessment. And then I can go into a little more detail on the special tax, but just pausing to see if you have questions on the assessment first.
Any questions from the committee members?
You said,
Yeah,
Doc,
you go.
you do the special assessment and it comes out, I'm not sure, would it affect insurance on that particular property? If it comes out like a higher value based on the assessment than what it is now? That makes sense?
Would it affect the amount of the properties, well, either the property's ability to get fire insurance or not, or the premium that they might pay?
Or the premium that might be affected by that particular piece of property?
We certainly can't make any promise that there is a direct relationship there, but if there are improvements to fire service in your community, and you're able to provide a higher level of service, that could potentially impact the insurance agency's pricing in your area, right? But we certainly can't be one of our benefit findings because we don't control what the insurance companies do.
Okay.
And insurance, and particularly fire insurance in California, is probably a whole nother topic.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
So one of the services that you also provide is there's a stop point along the way, okay? And that is, they do a survey of the potential voters, right? To see if there is a good opportunity, good chance that's going to pass.
Right.
Okay, so one of the things that they do is they go to, you know, the chief or whatever and the general manager, and they pick out those things that, you know, we need funded. But they're very cognizant of the fact that if there's something in there that would cause it not to pass, okay? That they would recommend against putting that into the beneficial assessment, okay? And they will go out and they will actually do a survey of property owners or voters, whichever way they went. That would say, okay, you know, will you vote for this measure? Here's what your property tax assessment would be. So that they get an idea as to whether, yes, it's got a great chance of passing, you should move forward. Or if it comes back and it says, no, there isn't, then the district at that point has the opportunity to stop the whole process, okay, and actually go in a different direction or do something else, okay? One of the things that I caution about is the firehouse, okay? Firehouse is a big chunk, and if that were to be put into the benefit assessment, that might scare off voters and they would, you know, tend to vote against that, where we saw with the ambulance. That went down the first time at least. So, you know, that might be something that needs to be not into the benefit assessment long term.
Tony, you had a question?
Well, I thought this would come in the second phase of the actual voting, but to some extent it comes into this first phase of the survey of voters. Where does the PR component come in? Because there's
Yeah.
the need to actually.
Sarah can probably
to
answer that
sell-
better.
to sell this.
But that's part of what the consultant would help with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question for Ms. Mears, for Sarah, related to what Dave was talking about. What are the formulas, what's kind of the formula for success essentially? And from your experience with fire assessments in particular, what works, what do people approve, what doesn't work? How often do they actually succeed and why, when they succeed, what are the factors that, you know, lead to their success?
So I had planned to talk about kind of that public engagement and outreach component after we went into the details on special tax, but we can certainly go there now. I think that there are not a lot of fire suppression assessments in California. And I would say there are a lot of communities that opt for the parcel tax for a variety of reasons, but one of which is that there have been some cases over the last few years that bring some level of question into how clearly we can make that special benefit argument for the fire suppression services, right? Because things, and so just diving into that just a little bit more on that piece of it is something that is a very clear special benefit to a property might be a sewer lateral or financing of a sewer lateral or something like that. It is literally something that is going through a pipe serving that particular property, right, in a little bit different way than fire service that is essentially available to your entire community, right? So a lot of agencies choose to avoid any question about the some of those legal questions by choosing that parcel tax. If I didn't think it was possible to do an appropriate benefit assessment for fire services based on current law, we wouldn't have sent you a proposal for it. So I'm pointing that out because there's not a lot of history in terms of, this is not a mechanism that you will see across the state all over the place in a lot of communities. That said, in order to be successful, I think the most important things are really in that outreach space, understanding what your community is looking for, what their particular concerns are. And again, Mr. Pearson, I don't know if you are looking for a job, but if you would like to become a consultant, you're doing such a great job of explaining all of this. We can talk later. The piece on the assessment that, you know, it makes it successful is, and on the tax as well, is really understanding what the community is looking for. Are they looking for faster response times? What does that mean? Is that more staffing, right? Are they looking for better equipment? Are they looking for some additional service, right? I mean, those are all things that we would sort of discern as we look at some of that surveying that we would be talking with you all in your community about, so that then we can develop a revenue tool that is helping to meet the community's needs. Because if it doesn't meet their needs, it's not going to pass, right? So that's really what we're trying to delve into, is to understanding sort of within that big bucket of fire service, what does that, you know, what does that mean to the community and what are they looking for? And getting the community advocates, you know, so getting folks in your community that are interested and supportive and understand what the needs are of the agency in this regard is also another tool, because having those people go out and talk to their neighbors, I get it. I'm the outside consultant. I don't live in your community. And you know, hearing from their neighbors is going to be a lot more impactful to people's opinions and understanding than hearing from me. So while I can, you know, talk till I'm blue in the face and I love talking about this stuff, you know, I'm still the outsider. So really making sure that you have the community groups that are supportive of your initiative, whether that's the assessment or the tax, getting out into the community and spreading that word and explaining it to people.
Thank you, thank you. You mentioned the tax, which is, you're talking about partial tax, basically with 2/3 vote.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, I think you're implying that that's more common as a solution to these needs. It's, you know, it looks like a high hurdle when you need a 2/3 vote. But again, question is, from your experience, how successful, what's the rate of success, and what does it take to make a successful vote on those things?
They are successful. Not every single one is successful, but I mean, I just was looking at this particularly for Alameda County for another client. So this is the data that's very fresh in my mind at this moment, which I realize is obviously a very different community from where you are, but you know, a lot more cities and that sort of thing. But in that community, almost every single one of the cities in that community has a parcel tax for public safety services, and some of them are specific to fire services. So they are very common across the state. And they're also common among community services districts as a tool as well, right? This is CSDs as a special district. You don't have as many tools available to you as a city does, right? You can't increase sales tax. There's a variety of things that are just not on your menu of options. And, you know, but the parcel tax is. And so for that reason, they're also used among special districts as well. But I mean, I go back to really, it's the same conversation around that outreach and engagement, which is getting word out in your community. First of all, understanding exactly, you know, what the interest and needs of your particular community are.
One more question. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but or committee's time, but you mentioned that the CSDs have rather limited taxing authority. For instance, they can't do sales tax. That brings up the issue of incorporation. Does your firm also do feasibility studies, I guess, of that option?
Looking at the Cambria community incorporating as a city.
Yeah.
We do a little bit of work in that regard, but not, I mean, that would involve all of like the municipal services reviews and the feasibility studies that go to LAFCO and so forth. We do some of that. There are pieces that you would need additional assistance with from other consultants.
Thank you very much. It's a great presentation. I mean, one more call for questions here?
You wanna talk about the tax in more detail or not?
The tax, the tax
Sort of
part,
said she was gonna say something else.
About the,
Sidetracked.
Parcel tax.
about the parcel tax, yeah, in more detail. I asked one question about it, but anything else? It sounds like you do feasibility or feasibility studies of that too, right? You would do just the same thing you do for the benefit assessment, the public outreach and the surveys and yeah.
Yeah, and so just
Any-
kind of on that theme of compare and contrast, the parcel tax, as I mentioned, does not need to be tied to benefit. It doesn't need to be tied to cost like your utility rates, right? It is very much a flexible mechanism. You do have the condition as a special district that your special tax or parcel tax would need to have uniform rates. That means that your rates are uniform. It doesn't mean that the result is uniform. So within that context, you could either structure that as a tax per parcel. So literally every taxable parcel in the community pays X dollars and that's your tax. You could structure that as a building square foot rate where everyone in the community pays 10 cents per square foot or, something like that. You can have a different rate for developed and undeveloped, but you cannot distinguish by land use. So where I mentioned in the benefit assessment, we're going to look really closely at land use to understand some of those parcel characteristics. With the tax, you cannot do that and also have a uniform rate. So that option is not one that's available. One of the benefits of the parcel tax, at least from a political perspective, is that with the parcel tax, you can offer exemptions. Meaning you could have an income-based exemption. You could have an age-based exemption. You could have an income and age-based exemption, right? So there are a few more tools in your toolbox in order to ensure that your, say lowest income homeowners, for example, are not burdened by this additional tax on their property tax bill, that sort of thing. So just, kind of wanted to mention that. And again, that in the spirit of comparing and contrasting, really understanding whether it is your voters who are going to be essentially your residents, right? If, understanding how their needs and views are playing into your decision making as compared to your property owners, and thinking about how many property owners you have who are residents versus property owners who are not in the community and perhaps not, living there full time, and that may not be as important to them for whatever reason, right? So just understanding those dynamics is really important. So.
Yeah, thank you.
One
Mhm.
more
Question, Gordon, yes.
In your comparison, if you got a benefit versus a tax, couldn't you utilize the tax more dollars to cover more of the fire protection than you would with the assessments? Being successful?
The tax is much more flexible in terms of what you can spend it on. There's no need to segregate any of those emergency medical services or, really anything else. And you don't have to separate out your general benefit. So it is much more flexible in terms of how you're spending than the assessment is.
Yeah, it's called a special tax, I know in Prop 13 language, but it's not like earmarked. Doesn't have to be earmarked, can just go to the general fund, or is it that flexible?
You do have to have a separate account for it. And so but the money has to be spent. So if you say that this is a tax for fire services, you can't spend the money on your police salaries or, maintaining your park or, whatever else, right? Or, in your utility fund or what have you. But it can be
Thank you.
generally fire services and go into that big bucket.
Yeah. Good.
So it segregates money just like the benefit assessment does.
Yeah.
It
Matthew, I didn't
does,
miss-
but a little less specific, yeah.
Yeah, my question for the parcel tax is we have some residents on a very long wait list for development. How is the vacant parcel weighted in terms of this vote? Is it equal to those with developed parcels? And those that are rather angry at the CCSD in terms of not being able to build because we're in a moratorium, would that affect that vote?
Yeah.
So if they haven't built yet, then I'm imagining they are not yet residents, nor are they registered voters.
Most aren't,
So,
most aren't.
Okay, okay.
so from that
Thank you.
perspective, they don't get a say if they're not registered voters on the parcel tax. And then on the
Yeah.
benefit assessment side, undeveloped property would generally have a lower assessment than developed property in most
Mhm.
cases. And so from that perspective, they would have less of the weighted vote or weighted ballot on the assessment typically, but it would be those property owners would be able to participate in the proceeding.
Thank you.
But, thank you. And as you mentioned earlier, on a parcel tax, you can also have a difference, a different rate for developed and undeveloped properties, right?
Correct.
You can, yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, you could
and,
charge
know,
$20 for an undeveloped property and 75
Yeah.
for a developed, or I mean, just making up numbers, right? But
I know the large majority of lot owners here, not all of them, but a large majority of them do not live here. So they would not be a factor in the election for a parcel tax,
mhm.
as opposed to a benefit, as opposed to a benefit. Yeah, one more question.
As you mentioned, 2/3 vote. Is that of all the voters or all the people that vote?
All the people that vote.
Yeah.
Because you would never get anything passed ever if you needed 2/3 of people to vote,
That's where
because
problem
not that
is.
many people come out.
Right, that's my question.
That's a big turnout, just.
Cambria is a
Yeah.
little different, but in any case, we should note that, there was a parcel tax that was proposed in, I think it was
2018,
2017,
yeah.
that failed, got 57%, I believe, of the vote.
That was proposed by the county, right?
No,
No,
it was Cambria.
Oh, it was yours. Okay, the county has worked on one as well, fairly recently, so,
Yeah,
but maybe.
this was for fire protection and it failed
Mhm.
miserably.
No. Any other questions?
Chairman,
Any
Chairman,
questions?
yeah,
Yeah.
the one question I had in terms of timing, if whichever direction we move towards to get it on the ballot, what would be MBS's timeline be to complete the study in order for us to get it on the ballot in 2026?
You mean
If
the
we're-
parcel tax?
Either the parcel or
Yeah.
benefits assessment.
Isn't election
Yeah,
at all.
right,
Okay, the benefit assessment, we can do anytime,
right. That
Okay.
question applies to the property tax.
only for the
Gotcha.
parcel.
Yeah,
So for the parcel tax then.
For the parcel tax, well, I mean, it depends on which election you're looking for. I would, at this point, probably not recommend. There's likely going to be a June election in 2026. That would be very tight timing because you have to have your resolution to call your election and consolidate and all of that 3 months prior, roughly. So, that leaves very little time between now and then to actually put your measure on the ballot. You could go for November 26th. You have plenty of timing. You would have until, depending on when your board meetings are, probably your July meeting is going to be, I don't know what your schedule is entirely, like looking to see when you might go dark or whatever, but generally June or July is when you want to be calling that, election for the November ballot, because it's that 90-day roughly window ahead of the election date that you need to get that resolution over to the county election office and say, please add this.
Thank you.
So there's
Okay,
plenty of
yeah.
time for November. You could do June, but you'd be very tight.
thank you.
One
One more, yeah.
The question is, if we're talking about just Cambria, you're talking about some like counties are trying to do this. Is it possible to unite a county under the fire protection as a group, as opposed to each individual city?
I mean, I'm not aware of anything particularly that is already planned to be on an upcoming ballot. I know we actually talked to the county this is a few years ago now, about a potential measure that they were looking at, but they, I believe, just ended up going a different direction. But I'm not aware of anything that might also be on the ballot at the same time, but that is a possibility that other agencies could be looking at different measures. It would, I guess, have to be the county in your area to, right? That's the only other overlapping agency that would perhaps be able to do anything relative to fire protection.
We had Marin County, seems to have a county tax for all the fire departments.
Yep. We worked on that.
Yeah,
Therefore, that was the question.
and that was a parcel tax, right?
Well, that's an authority. That's not the county itself. That is an authority that includes most of the cities in Marin County as well as the county. And not, so that was not a situation where the county just went on top of everyone and did that. That was an authority that came together and all of those agencies agreed. And it doesn't include, there's a couple of cities that opted out of that authority. They said, we don't want the tax. We don't want to be part of your authority. We've got our fire services covered.
Is that a possibility here or not?
To try to come up with some sort of fire authority with a bunch of local agencies. I mean, I think that's always a possibility. That would obviously take a lot of time to put that authority together and gain that consensus, and you know, there's a lot there.
Okay. Want to move along here. No more questions from anybody else. Yeah, I want to talk, basically move to the second half of this item where we make a recommendation. Again, I mean, I think we're headed toward, just in this discussion, we're headed toward the recommendation that an RFP go out, which would specify a two-part process, a bifurcated process with the feasibility, essentially a feasibility study, I think we're talking about being the first part, as to whether it would be practical to go for a benefit assessment, what should be, what would be the most, favorable content in terms of what's being asked for. And then whether there are alternatives that should be considered in terms of revenue raising. Phase one, phase two, if we decide to go forward, if the CCSD decides to go forward, would be the actual conduct of the either the engineering, the benefit assessment, or the work that's done for the tax. So I'm seeing that as kind of something that's emerging from this discussion. Mr. Pierce, I'm going to turn to you again because you were talking about this a little bit in your report.
So, I did a study when I was on the finance committee about revenue opportunity, okay? And, to me, there are, three basic ways to go. We could go with benefit assessment, okay? We can go with the parcel tax, try that again, okay? Or we go with incorporation, okay, and try that, okay? The key to me is to get some outside person to look at where we're at and what we need out, and which one of those makes the most sense for us, okay? To me, the incorporation makes a lot of sense because we would no longer be taxing the residents. We would be taxing the visitors, okay? Who currently we get no benefit from the DOT tax or the sales tax, okay? Other than what the county quote unquote provides us with services, okay, which in the case of the fire department is next to nothing, okay? And those visitors get a lot of benefit, okay, from our fire department, okay? Medically, what is it, about a third of the calls you guys go out on are people that don't live here, right? The fire prevention and stuff is focused on the entire town, not just, one area of town and stuff. And those people are more likely to set the damn place on fire, I think, than the residents are, right? So the TOT tax and the sales tax currently all goes to the county. And we get nothing of that. If we incorporate, we would be able to get all of that. We'd have to give a lot back to the county, okay? But that's all part of a assessment as to whether that would be a feasible way to go, or is the benefit assessment the way to go, or is another shot at the parcel tax the way to go? And so my recommendation to the board would be hire a consultant that can tell them which one of those is the best direction for Cambria to go.
Before you try to form that into a motion, I want to take public comment if there is any.
No.
No public comment online or in-house, you want to talk? Okay, so continue. We have some further discussion at the board, among the committee. But I think it's helpful if, Dave, you want to present that in the form of a motion, we could,
I make a motion.
Chairman Gregg, can I
Yes.
just, I just, how do I frame this? So as a part of that motion, are we going to have this brought forward to the board in terms of looking at 3 different choices? So right now we know that MBS has a proposal in front of us to advance this feasibility study for either a parcel tax or special benefits assessment. What we don't have in terms of that missing piece is what would need other consultants that would have to be brought in, maybe in conjunction with the MBS for the incorporation piece. The last piece of it is there a way we can advance this forward? Because I'll be candid, and I think we know that I think the incorporation piece could be dead on arrival at the board level just based on the current board temperament towards incorporation. And so I would hate to delay this moving forward if we don't piece it, and give the board different choices, if that makes sense. And so is the committee willing to move forward with this as incorporation being one of those options recommended to the board in terms of them authorizing staff or directing staff to go get that consultant? Because I think, my belief is, unless there's a change of heart at the board level, that they'll probably take off the incorporation piece entirely. Although I don't disagree with at some point we need the answer on whether or not incorporation is an option. And there's various opinions on there out there about whether or not it's feasible. Just my thought.
Yeah, you're right, go first.
I'll make, I think that the board is more amenable than they were the last month, okay? I will make the motion that the board, that we recommend to the board that they consider hiring a consultant to help them make a decision on which revenue source to proceed to. And the board can either go with just benefit assessment and parcel tax, or they can add the incorporation into that RFP.
Yeah, there was leaving the choice, the incorporation in the board's court.
Entirely up to the board.
Entirely up to the board, not, in other words, not dictating that they look into incorporation as opposed in along with others.
Yeah,
think
because I think
that's
they
good.
should, but
I mean,
it's.
But it will give them the option
the
too.
choices that they can choose. to
Right.
look at.
All right, is that your motion?
Yes.
I second the motion.
Yes, just restate the motion again for the record.
So,
We do have public comment,
Oh,
just to let
we do have now? Oh. Okay, before we vote, I didn't see it.
It's iPhone 23.
iPhone 23. That must be Christina Galloway.
Hi, yeah,
know you
Christina
have.
Galloway here. Sorry, I think maybe I didn't get my hand up fast enough.
Yeah, you
As
weren't there in
some-
the first round.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I'm joining in a little late. My comment is just related. I guess, Matthew, you kind of touched on it a bit, like as a resident, who sees like serious needs, within the fire department that seem more urgent than something like studying incorporation and then trying to move forward with that process and getting that process approved and yada yada would take. I can't stress enough that I feel like this should be in 2 separate buckets of like, what do we do to meet these urgent needs, in the nearest future? And then, what makes sense long term. I don't disagree that we're a community that's getting, shortchanged on TOT tax, but I get nervous when I hear all this stuff bucketed together, even though they are, interconnected. Just because it sounds like delay, look into all these various different things and the immediate needs of the residents, in terms of safety don't get met. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more public comment?
No.
Okay, going back to Mr. Pearson. To restate your motion, and we'll, go from there.
May I make a suggestion
Yeah.
about the motion?
Yeah.
We need to, I believe, included in the motion is, for the committee, we need to accept Mr. Pearson's report. And then
Okay, so
and then recommend that it be forwarded to the board of directors. And a presentation be made by Mr. Pearson or about the recommendations which
so
are
I'll-
included in the
I
report.
can put you on the record as moving that we accept Mr. Pearson's report and recommend that it be forwarded to the board. There's a second, no, that's your, that's our, Mr. Chapman's motion.
I disagree with that. That's not concluding what we just mentioned. All others except for the benefit.
This is the first part. This is the first part. What he's saying is that there's a,
We'll have two motions.
we'll have two motions, basically. The second motion that Dave has brought up
Okay, well-
already. Is there a second? But a second, to
Yeah,
Mr. Chapman.
second.
Okay. So move to second that we accept Mr. Pearson's report and forward and recommend that the board take it up. Now, roll call here, Mr. Chapman,
Say again?
roll call here. Aye.
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 Mr. Pearson,
Aye.
Mr. Heinrichs,
Nay.
nay, and Mr. DeLuca.
Aye.
Okay, it's 4-1, passes. Motion passes. Now you get back to Mr. Pearson's motion. Restate it for the record so we can move
Okay,
forward.
so, I move that we, recommend that the board hire a consultant to consider, revenue sources to, increase the general fund,
Mhm.
and that the board consider, asking the consultant to, come back with feasibility studies on one or two or all three of the possibilities. Benefit assessment, parcel tax, and incorporation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. It's been moved and seconded that as a motion has been explained, we recommend that the board hire consultant to investigate the alternatives for increasing fire protection funds in the general fund and to direct the consultant to look at alternatives, including at the board's, including benefit assessment, parcel tax, and possible incorporation. Okay. I'll call the, and it's been moved by Mr. Pearson, seconded by Mr. Heinrichs. I'll call the roll, Mr. Pearson,
Aye.
Mr. Heinrichs,
Aye.
Stafford, Mr. Chapman,
Aye.
Mr. Luca, 5-0. Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah, Ms. Maris, for a very informative presentation. And we'll move on.
Thank you so
Thank you
much for
again.
having me.
Yeah. So the next item, 4B, is something I think I'll ask the ad hoc committee to present this. It's a number of documents that they submitted, one of which is a draft of the I guess the new community wildfire protection plan. I would note, having read through this and done some editing on it, that I think there was it's a bit rough because I think what happened was it was presented with a markup version, and I converted it to a clean copy, accepting the changes. There's quite a bit of typographical noise in that in the document you have now. You're probably not worried about that too much because we can edit that out. So don't try to do like a spot editing. But I wanted to get the committee's little presentation on this as to which of these documents and does what. In other words, there's looks like there's a draft of the actual plan. Yeah, and then but this number of supporting maps and then list of recommendations. This is the conclusion of the PDF, things like that I'm not quite sure about where those fit in. So either of you guys maybe can start with that.
Okay. Well, basically, On did all the preliminary put together the draft.
Mhm.
Utilizing all four, suggestions from, Cal Poly students'
Mhm.
recommendation. They were very well done, generally, what depth they went into their thoughts and comments. So, I think opened up a lot of channels, wannabe stuff. Well, wannabe, what we can do, they have some differences. So what, Ron put together is things in red that, also,
Fire Chief Putney
Putney
added some
added
stuff.
comments.
I,
Yeah.
we-
So we got them all together.
Right, yeah.
basically, I took the last draft, which I believe was 2008 or something.
Yeah.
Yes, it was close. And I basically took that and went through it, and then I took the new studies done by Cal Poly, and I moved what the newest versions of the older stuff into basically the report.
Mhm.
So that's basically what we're at, it's just, it is a rough draft, it is but I was also under the impression that that's what I was to give was a rough
Yeah.
draft, the board and I don't know, the fire state council, someone is gonna come together and finish it all out and make it a nice copy for the pipe, so
Mhm.
we didn't do a finalized version, we did a draft of everything.
Right.
And basically took what was there and updated it. So
Mhm.
that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah.
All the collaboration is just the people who work with the fire safety council and the city or the town of Cambria work on everything. The hazard assessments were done, how much just the assessment of how much danger is to the town is the hazard assessment.
Mhm.
The weather, I think Chief Putney added some things about so many days of the year, you have like 8% humidity, which is really low.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I forget how he did it, but,
Mhm.
so basically what it is, we updated, with the newest, information.
Mhm.
And put it on the paper, the maps and the conclusion are, go with the evacuation part of it, which is existing ingress, egress Cambria. On the last
That last page,
Page.
that helps to have that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Explain a
that,
little bit, because
that basically the maps, if you look at the maps, it'll talk about Cambridge evacuation network. And it'll show what the existing maps, what the existing network is and the new ones that are proposed.
Mhm.
And so we thought that would be helpful, showing the new routes that could be proposed.
Yeah, I think there was
And-
one thing I guess I didn't include in the handouts was a little map of across the current Visclini property off of Green Street. A
Oh,
little
right.
extension of the old road,
Right,
basically.
right.
And I didn't put that in because I didn't see where it fit in with the description of the escape routes, but I could.
That's what the
That's-
maps were attached for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the map is.
Okay.
That's the.
That one
I
map,
think the
though.
heading indicated what.
Yeah, the Green Street was a new proposed that
Yeah.
if we opened that road up, it would come out to Highway 1,
Yeah.
would give another escape
Yeah.
route for the people. That was like, that was put in there. That's a new proposed route that needs to I believe, property owner permission to cross that, and so far it's been a no. So-
Yeah, I've actually talked to him.
Yeah.
Hey, a meeting that we had about 3 years ago
Yeah.
with the sheriff and CHP.
Mhm.
The CHP does not want that to happen. The reason is that they want to keep the intersections to a minimum, and that would add an intersection.
Another intersection, yeah,
Right.
Okay,
yeah,
before the 46 interchange,
right.
which is their key. Okay, because at 46, that's their opportunity to send people different directions.
Yeah.
Okay, and so any other intersection that happens before that, they say is going to take another one of their officers to sit there and you go, you go, you go,
Right.
you go type stuff, and he wanted nothing to do with that down the street.
Yeah, I kind of saw the same thing, it's just, we're moving a
The bottleneck.
bottleneck to another spot
spot.
on another highway that trying to keep it back.
That's, I
But
think.
but it was part of the project that they
Yeah.
did in the study, and said
Did
this
that
would be a
the-
good
yeah,
route.
all the
And so it was included,
Yeah.
so we included all of the suggestions
Mhm.
that were made. It's,
Yeah, and
again,
there's nothing
it's
gonna keep
no.
them in there.
it's,
It's
again,
just that
it's,
when you,
yeah,
start going down the road on that one. I think
Right.
You're gonna,
Lord.
I have very high concerns about your comments. That extra intersection is the one I kind might get out. Nobody's gonna get out that one if it's all blocked up. Now you're screwed. That's
Well,
false anyways. That's why I left it in there, because depends where you live. If you live on Lodge Hill, none of those recommendations are ever made by the CCSD that I've seen before.
Mhm.
But since the Cal Poly boys are open to suggestions, that was an excellent thing to suggest, have another way for me to get out. But I just come around the bottom and go out. I don't have to go through the main intersection. The other one is
Yeah.
going out at Ellis Road, going south.
right.
That's another road that goes out. Another one's over by the,
Rancho Marina.
Rancho Marino, yeah.
But
Now-
these are things that are available, but I think we need to look at them more diligently.
Yeah, this kind of leads to an issue with, how far we want this, what the scope of this plan is gonna be.
Right.
Because if we're gonna start talking about escape routes, well, then, yeah, there's,
It's called evacuation routes.
yeah, evacuation routes. There are no evacuation routes in this listed here that get out of town.
right.
They all get to the highway. So.
And
Well, that's not necessarily what I was looking at.
That's the-
No, the ones that are listed here, they're
Right.
all just, they're the existing routes that skip to the edge of town essentially.
Yes.
Right.
And that's the problem because, and we've talked about this, I've talked about this a lot. You don't have, you need an alternate, you need something of an alternative that really does take a lot of this. Gives a true alternative route. Now, if you want to get into that discussion. I guess it would have to go beyond this listing of current routes, but. I guess the question is I have, and maybe Chief Berkey could weigh in on this one. What is the scope of this supposed to be? I mean, is it supposed to be deal with evacuation or it's supposed to deal with, the preparedness, other aspects of preparedness that's covered? Because evacuation is a much bigger topic than you.
That's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
The CWPP.
Yeah.
Is mostly about wildfire prevention.
Prevention, okay.
Okay, that's the scope of this.
Right.
They do have evacuation routes included into this. And then there's also sections in here which would correspond with fire safe councils also. They talk about alerts. They talk about putting in sirens. They talk about signage, and they talk about all that kind of stuff, which also could be incorporated through the fire safe council. So there's a lot of aspects of this. This, like I said, it's a rough draft. This is what we took from the Cal Poly study, updated what was there and added a few things that hadn't been in there. And so, to incorporate it all together, it's gonna take a big discussion between the chief and everyone else to figure out how they want to do it, because there are hazard assessments that talks about, where did I put it? It's in, the fuel conditions during the summer months, and it goes into a lot of particular stuff for.
Yeah.
The CWPP is basically wildfire prevention for
Yeah.
the community. With incorporating a little bit of evacuation, but it doesn't necessarily go into the
In
evacuation.
the evacuation.
But there was some added on here, so we left them included in
Yeah.
with the maps and stuff like that.
Just so we, I remind people, this is a discussion item. We don't have to take any action on it, but I wanted to get staff's input on the timing here, because we did this, we kind of hurried this process along to meet this time. And I do think there's an October deadline for something. Isn't there that needs to be filed or completed? Mr. McElhaney or Mr. Berkey, Chief Berkey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made our application
Yeah.
for the,
I thought it was October. I don't remember exactly the date that we had to get this in for sure, but October was the date. I can check on what exact date that was, but as far as I know, it hasn't been submitted yet.
Yeah, no, we met with, Bob Button.
Mhm.
And he went through this too, and I showed him what he had, he says, that's fine, I'll take care of the rest or something like, you know, he kind of. There's another group that's gonna go over the whole thing, probably with all you guys to discuss and finalize everything.
Yeah.
What he wanted was which we submitted was a rough draft
Mhm.
of what should be looked at for the future of fire. And like in the conclusion page, it says these things should be done within 2-3 years and so. That's all gonna come back to the board's.
Yeah.
Choices on what they want to do.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where we're at. And some of this stuff, I believe now that I looked at it again, since we've done this, like the Cobell Ranch has done fuel reduction, and I think
Right.
that Dan Marino has done fuel reductions and stuff like that. So some of it is still a little bit behind, but it could be updated fairly easily.
Yeah.
The conclusions give you a
Yeah.
timeline of getting evacuation out. It's not gonna happen tomorrow.
Right.
But my point of interest is, if you can drive down a road a mile or two that doesn't go into Highway 1, there's a plenty of spaces such as Fiskevania Ranch is, that you can park your vehicle there for an hour or two as a fire burns through your house.
Yeah.
Instead of you sitting in your house saying, I wish I had another way out. That's my intent.
Mhm.
Something that didn't come up on here is, safe spaces to evacuate too, like if you want to get out of this certain area, you can go here because this is a safe space.
Yeah.
Like I think, is it Grammar School or something like that?
There's a
Green
number,
Terrace
there's
has-
a number of, I think one of these maps has
Right.
them
And
located, has them
It has a couple
identified.
of places on there,
Yeah.
but those are only accessible from certain areas. They're not like
The
accessible.
new,
to everyone.
the new evacuation plan that Chief is working on.
Yeah,
With the Fire Safe Council. Has revised those, okay?
Yeah.
So that
yeah.
they're no longer safe havens, they're temporary.
Right.
Refuge.
Yeah.
And the issue with those temporary areas that, the same thing with the designated routes that we put in red.
Right.
Most people will look at those and say, that's my route every
Right.
single time. And so the same thing with the designated, what we hear when we do the emergency preparedness meetings in the neighborhoods, they say, well, for instance, Marine Terrace, we're going to Lambton Park every time. Well, that's not always gonna be the
Right.
safest area. So there's always a hesitation to put these on a map. And we're really trying to work on the language to say these are suggested areas, potential areas to go. We won't know until the emergency happens where we can put people or where they can go. So it's
Right.
it's a difficult process to put. Because again, it's just natural
No,
for people to say that, they're gonna pick a spot and they don't have to worry about it anymore. So what we're trying to do is prevent that from happening and say, please pay attention to the alert when it comes out and follow the directions at that point. These are the potentials.
And that's one of the things that we think, I think was important is the alert system.
Mhm.
Like the alert system that went out just for water. Yeah, we all got it, but it was 2 hours late.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, some instances were 2 hours late, 5 minutes late on a fire, you're gonna be in trouble. So, the things like that I would think would be more of a priority than some of the other things on here, but. Getting that alert system down to where I know it's almost impossible. I know that, but I'm just saying, those are the kind of things that. Should be looked at,
In an emergency such as a wildfire or,
Yeah.
Those alerts would be going a lot quicker.
A lot quicker.
Because it'd be coming from our.
Yeah, if I could address that a little bit, and you have to understand with the water situation, they were kind of trying to figure out what they
Right.
had. I'm responding in and seeing a large column of smoke blowing over, okay, I already have houses involved. I'm getting on the radio immediately, dispatch, go ahead and start mandatory evacuations where there's no one there to jump on it.
Right.
And I'm like, what do we have? It's like, we know what we have, this is not good.
No, I know, and I get those alerts, like any fire in town, I get it within just a couple minutes, or.
And that's just an app, that's not even
No,
us putting on an alert.
Right. I forgot, I don't know which one I have, but I have one that alerts me to everything that's going on.
So it sounds like we, again, I had a question about this,
Pulse one.
about the PDF, the conclusions, are these conclusions from the Cal Poly
Yes.
Yes.
study? Okay, so we don't really have a,
Page 7. That was a nice summary.
Do we have,
They're the only ones.
We don't really have we haven't gone over these
no,
to say which ones make sense and which
Right.
ones don't.
no,
that's what we
there's
thought.
more of the study needs to
So,
be done on
yeah.
that part of it.
What's
This
more
is just,
important?
well, yeah, this is what we got those reports from the Cal Poly studies that we had, and then the old CWP from 2008 or something. It wasn't 2008, I think it was a little newer, but anyway, it was old, and we
Yeah.
have the every 3 years or something. 5 years?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be updated every 5 years.
Okay, so, yeah, these are just the important
Mhm.
aspects of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, as I said, some of these have already been done.
Yeah.
Belleville Ranch has already been
Right.
done. San Marino's ranch, it's been done. And so there's some other things that are.
Any staff, Mr. McElhenney or Chief Brigg, any questions or comments? That you could like to throw in here?
No, I think that it's been explained pretty well.
Yeah. So this, I mean, my question, and any more questions from the board about this? Any public comment?
No.
No public comment ear, or we had comment, staff comment, but get that later. Just give my take on it. If we don't have to turn anything in, like, could turn in a completed community wildfire protection plan anytime soon, I'd like to find out for sure we don't. It'd be good to return to this with maybe some focus on particular areas, priority areas. And
Well, that's what the conclusion is, sort of,
well,
time. I mean, that's why I interpreted that.
but those are not, I just say, these are not our,
No.
This isn't our
where
document.
from.
yeah,
Okay.
we work from that, yeah. But then again, I think also, if you get, if this is something we're gonna direct staff to work on, I think that's kind of the idea.
Yeah. That
And
was what my understanding,
Yeah.
our understanding was we were to put something together and turn it back over to
Right.
staff.
then for
And
staff.
then they were gonna break it down and submit a final proposal.
Yeah,
So
I think that's what we do next. We have come, we turn it over to staff and have them just come back with a report that
Mhm.
is something that we would look at and discuss and approve or recommend approval of.
Yeah.
My general thoughts are that the evacuation route issue maybe should be broken out and dealt with in a lot more depth. Evacuation plan within Cambria is kind of, one thing, and then the evacuation plan to get out of Cambria is another, and the two, they go together, obviously, but we're working on an evacuation plan within Cambria, and we're still talking about routes like the Green Street extension, Rancho Marino.
Mhm.
And maybe we should have a separate, expand the discussion in this report, have staff expand the discussion about the pros and cons of the various evacuation routes, and to include in the final report.
I think,
Yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah,
I have no problem with that. Yeah.
The first part of it's very standard.
Yeah.
It's read several times the same way.
Yeah.
And all four of them agreed with it most of the time.
Yeah.
On wind blew this much and that much and
Right.
whatever, but the last part, they sort of were lacking, but then they said they want to be creative. I
Mhm.
guess, and said, hey, if I was gonna be here, these were things I would consider.
Mhm.
And that's what we need to concentrate on as
Yeah.
a separate item. I agree with that.
Yeah. Any more discussion? Committee discussion? This doesn't really require a vote, but any more staff, and Mr. McElhenney said we'd kind of cover everything. Chief, anything else?
Nothing else to add.
So basically what we're doing here is, it's the first look at it. Thank you, for the work. You had a lot of material to, work with and incorporate and compress and, turn into a text. And, I also want to, in absentia, thank, Bob Putney.
Yes.
I do think, I found very interesting the stuff on, page, I guess it's the, under the heading of weather, but then it gets into, fire behavior and fire risk.
Yeah.
It's a very important point to make public, that the fact that haven't had a serious wildfire here for a little more than 100 years, 1890 years, when the town burned down. It's actually not a good, it shouldn't make you feel safe because.
Right.
Because there's a fire cycle here. naturally, where
And they,
it'll happen, and the more fuel you build up, the worse the fire is.
right.
Yeah.
There was actually some really good fire models on some of the paperwork, but we didn't include any of that.
Mhm.
But there is some really good fire, shows how the fire coming from east going west.
Yeah.
Gonna be, this is the area it's gonna take out, it's gonna take it out in
Right,
like
right.
45 minutes or
Yeah.
something. And then this is the area coming the other way with the wind in this direction at a certain time. There was some really good fuel models there. We just didn't include it. That's part of the final draft that would be
Yeah.
presented. But yeah, there's some
But you
really
could,
good information.
I would think you could, pass this along to staff. Yeah, pass it
Yeah.
on to staff for incorporation in the final document.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you for your work. Move on to item C, 4C. Oh, yeah, there we go. Ask for public comment already. Item 4C, which is, it's kind of I think Chief Berkey, you requested this, but other people have been asking about this too, about the open fire ordinance. And, I wanted to, just maybe have you present it. I also note the exhibit, with the attachment. There's a key, the key paragraphs seems to me to be I think it's section 6040440, paragraph 5, open burning, where we have our own open burning ordinance, our open burning prohibition. This is on chapter page 19 of the agenda. That's, I think, what we're talking about here, right? The one that says all open burning bonfires, warming fires, and debris fires are prohibited within the Cambria CSD jurisdictional boundaries, except as permitted and authorized by Cambria Community District Fire Department, so forth. Does not restrict barbecues in a permanent approved barbecue pit or a manufacturing device designed for this purpose, but it does seem to prohibit these, fires in little fire basins that you warm yourself around. So that is the current ordinance, right? Basically, yeah. So anything, that's kind of what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Discussing here, yeah.
Yeah, so it was brought up to my attention by several community members that they wanted, they had discussed kind of concern with visitors mostly, and the VRBOs, having their fire pits in their backyard. Most of them were open wood fires, not the gas fires.
Yeah.
We were kind of concerned with, or that they were bringing the concern to my attention. So it was just, something that I thought might be a good discussion point for us to see what the validity would be of just, because right now it does authorize them if it's within that designated fire pit with, the spark arrestor over it. Which we know they don't always follow that.
Yeah.
By the time we get there, it's covered, I guarantee that, but most of the time when it's being called or being reported in, they're not doing that. So my discussion was about that, to see if there was anyone, if we wanted to, recommend or discuss any changes to this, or because we're just about to the new fire code's out already. We're going to be adopting it very soon. So I wanted to kind of get this discussion on the table and see if we wanted to make any amendments to it or changes while we're in that process.
Is it consistent with the new fire code, or is there things to be anticipated?
This is pretty consistent with the new fire.
Is there anything you recommend?
No, I recommend keeping it pretty much how it is. I don't think, as far as like outline, getting. I'm not outlining, getting rid of barbecues or getting rid of the all open burning, including those designated pits. I don't see that being necessary. I don't feel like those are, especially from the research that I've done, those aren't a high likelihood of causing wildfires or fires in general. Unintended campfires, that type of stuff, warming fires, and those are for sure a problem. But this type of, we haven't really noticed, at least nationwide, we haven't noticed any increase or any real serious concerns with those. And as far as the fire within these fire pits,
So you feel this encompasses your concerns?
absolutely.
100%?
I've had direct experience with this with my next door neighbor, and it was an Airbnb illegal Airbnb rental, as it turned out. And it appeared to be an open fire. It was like the embers, the fire itself and the embers were at least 25 to 30 feet in the air. So it was a pretty extreme fire. And I don't know how we establish rules or restrictions about that to modify that so that we don't have the risk of creating a wildfire from the embers that were coming from this crazy fire. I called you guys, and by the time you fellows came, why they had it all, they had it covered. They heard you guys coming, so
Yeah,
they
that's typical,
fixed it.
right? And that's the difficulty. It's like fireworks, right? We want to enforce that, but fireworks are explosions. By the time we even get anywhere near them, they're gone. Every unless they start a fire. So it's the same thing with the fire pits. They're supposed to have these arresters in place. They're supposed to have them covered. And unfortunately, they don't always. And we have mechanisms in place to create fines for those if they, continue violations. But like I said, it's difficult. I think where the problem lies for me, this is we've talked about it with emergency preparedness and with the visitors, as far as the VRBOs and the hotels and whatnot. It's educating the visitors to tell them and having some form of because most of the people get there and they don't know. They're just like, oh, fire pit, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna do what I normally do wherever I live, which isn't always following the rules either. But if we had some sort of educational, signage or something along those lines that required them to put something by us that, hey, this is, you are required to have this happen, follow these rules. I feel like that would probably be a better direction than changing what we have in our municipal code.
And we have a number of vacation rental agencies in town. And it seems to me that advising them to put notices out would be very helpful. And also, I don't know how many Airbnb structures are licensed here or used here. But if we could, if there was a way to get them to monitor or at least advise, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, and that's where we're working on the same
Responsibility.
Right, 100. I almost said it. I caught myself. Absolutely. So he gets on me when I say 100%. He doesn't like it. Anyway.
It's fine with it, just point
As long as you're really 100%.
The
right?
Berkey isn't, but,
Dear, I mean. Well, anyway, so with that, I really do feel like we have a lot of work to do with our VRBOs on not only with this, but also with the notifications, emergency preparedness type. I want them to be able to walk into that house and have that emergency preparedness information firsthand. So when they first walk in, they know their evacuation routes, whatever they have, and then they go off and have their cocktails. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I want them to, and same thing with the fire pit. That way they don't have to worry about it later. They go, okay, here's the rules. It's just like when you walk into a pool. Okay, they've got the signage on the wall. It says this pool hours or whatever it is, or in the spa. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be the same thing with the fire pit. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And I feel like that's probably, again, a better direction to go than the changing this, but I think this is that.
I've been a renter of Airbnbs and vacation rentals in other communities. And I've seen a large variance in how complete and readable their little instruction booklet. Either, it's a sheet of paper or it's a binder this big. They vary from nothing to excessive.
Most of them are.
But I'm wondering if it's possible for the department to work directly with the rental agencies first, and then I don't know how you get to Airbnb folks, but at least the rental agencies in town to get them to get them to include that information, in the renters,
Yeah.
information booklet.
We're talking specifically now about wood burning fire pits, right? And safety, rather than banning them, having, telling people I use them safely, keeping the screen over them for the embers and so forth. I don't know what could, I mean, that's the thing, you keep the screen over it, so the embers don't get out, basically.
Right.
It sounds like we might be moving toward a proposed notice that posted or is, in rentals. Do you think, a question that comes up though is, do you think there's a problem with residents doing that? Or they're less likely to do
I
it?
mean, I would say, given the percentage of phone calls that I get, most of them are, a higher percentage would be visitors.
Is it residents complaining about this?
Residents complain, yeah,
Right.
yeah, but there are residents, there's certain,
One's next to me.
yeah.
Really? Next. Structure side.
Yeah, exactly. There's a perfect example. So there are out there,
Down the
not
street?
that our residents are hundred
Down
percent
your street.
in
Oh,
compliance.
okay. Thank you, I'm sorry.
No,
Because
no.
we live like almost next door to each
Yeah,
other, so we talk to the neighbor.
Allison and
He's
I-
acting up, I wanna know. Yep.
The guy. The doors, little.
So there are,
Yeah,
to answer your
yeah.
question, there are, but there's a smaller percentage in that case.
Yeah.
You're talking about basically number 5 there, is that correct? Paragraph 5.
Paragraph 5 is the key one for us, I think, because that's.
So I don't, just, it doesn't say,
Yeah,
I can say specifically, the screen is approved, and who's gonna approve it? But I would think if you had wood burning fires has to be screened, specifically written out, as opposed to. That gives your mind, well, if I got a barbecue, that's fine, but a fire, oh, well, I can put it over fire. So I would think I would add even more detail there.
Yeah, so maybe chief, what you need to do is get a recommended revision to that paragraph. That includes the screen and includes some kind of notice.
Right,
And bring it back to us and say, okay, this is what we would like to see go forward.
Yeah. That sounded good.
I'm trying to look in the fire code. I thought that was already outlined in the fire code.
So the fire code, the item on the last page, right?
Yeah,
I think it is, well, I think.
I apologize, not being.
There's portable outdoor fireplaces. Is kind of the one,
It doesn't,
doesn't really get into that, doesn't get into,
I didn't see a specific reference to
exactly.
a screen.
Yeah, I'll do some more digging, but yeah, I don't see it on here either, but I'll. Yeah.
then you got to say, hey, it's written and
Yeah.
you should.
Yeah, because, and I mean, they basically wanna keep it safe, for wood burning, for fires to be in a container manufactured for that purpose with the safety, with the screen. It's not just, also screen's not just rusted out,
Right.
and because they do get that way.
Right.
It's functional and it's being used correctly, yeah.
That's just a sentence to drop.
Yeah,
in.
I think that's a good
It's
idea.
effective.
This is
I think
guidance,
the
yeah.
Airbnb rental is a separate work stream that I concentrate on, and it's in our minds to, the materials are floating around about that. We need to get it together and get it up to the right agencies and homeowner who are renting out.
Is there any, before we go on, any public comment on this issue?
No.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think what we've got is, we've kind of reached a consensus on, basically amplifying the wording a little bit, being more specific to it, this case of fire pits. And, what, Mr. Safford's suggesting maybe is a future agenda item.
Sure.
Expand the issue, expand the process of notification and possible enforcement and prevention to the visitor serving businesses, essentially.
Well, so it's actually,
Airbnb and the rentals.
it's a larger discussion about emergency preparedness
Yeah, but that's
for
just specific.
visitors.
Yeah.
Wherever they're staying.
Okay. So if there's no further comment or questions on this item, I'll move on actually to the final chapter here. There's Future agenda items. Not mistaken, yes. Anyone here? On staff or on the board, on the committee? Have a future agenda item to propose.
All right, emergency preparedness for visitors staying in hotels, Airbnbs, et cetera.
Now, this is actually kind of a perennial topic in a way, because we've been talking about. You know, what to put in the Airbnbs and in the motel rooms and so forth for quite a while, I think, especially with evacuation. So I guess do we want to focus on that again, or we want to go to more of what we're talking about with, you know, safe use of fire or whatever. We want to kind of go back to that, trying to get a piece of paper together, a brochure together, covering evacuation, you know, revive that effort.
Well,
I mean, we're
Yeah.
kind of the evacuation.
Yeah.
But I think for the visitor, there needs to be a separate piece.
Okay.
Welcome to Cambria,
Right, here's the,
you're in a fire zone.
and here's the emergency numbers.
Right, here.
Okay.
Here's.
I would
If you would like to down.
future agenda item be all like emergency preparedness for VRBOs
Okay.
or vacation rentals in general.
Or aimed at vacation rentals, not, is it also, you think the motels are
Yeah.
covered?
Yes.
They're covered.
We should cover it.
All cover, yeah, all visitor facing
Yeah.
businesses, yeah.
And we can
Yeah.
pull in other resources here, the tourist board and
Mhm.
Chamber of Commerce. And
Kind of review where we are and what we need to do too.
there are some materials that Karen Dean put forth.
Right, and.
I had varied somewhere.
Okay. Actually, we had I think speaking of Karen, I think this, I was working with her on this too. I think Dave was working on her. They had a brochure pretty much put together, but there was there's a blank space for a map. And I don't think they ever got that filled.
I
Is
have
it-
that, I have that material, which also.
Okay, good, yeah, so it was quite a bit that was done, but there was some missing items. This is back when Bill Hollingsworth was chief, actually, when Hollingsworth. That's a long time, so it's a good way that we review that. Any other, so we'll put that on the agenda. Any other future agenda items?
Are we supposed to work on the evacuation thing, but some stuff, or how did you want to do that? Just let the committee take over from?
No.
Is,
It's up to, yeah, it's kind of up to chief, because it is being referred to staff, but I mean.
Yeah, that's.
They'll might draw on your,
Staff.
yeah. Do you,
we can I'll work with you on that
Yeah.
and we can kind of touch base
Okay.
outside.
yeah, because,
Because it's evacuation and we're talking about doing evacuation.
well,
Some other
this
stuff on
this
here.
is actually, this evacuation thing we're talking about with the visitors is telling them what to
Right.
do, what they need to
That's-
do
this is
when
open
they,
fire stuff.
yeah, well, it's two things actually, because
Yeah,
evacuation
so I
stuff is
would-
something, yeah,
Yeah,
they need to know what the evacuation routes are, and there's materials for them that have been in preparation for a long time. We want to
for
get those
for that, I
for
just want to make
visitors, yeah.
Yep, I just want to make sure we meet the mission of that
Right, okay.
document, you know, so
Okay.
we can discuss that a little bit better. I don't want to
Okay.
go too far one way
Right.
and then that's not the purpose. of
Okay.
it.
Yeah, so maybe, yeah, maybe so the next, between now and the next meeting, the three of you can do have a collaborative meeting.
Okay.
Cause he hadn't done that yet, really, cause he worked with Bob Putney, but
I
yeah,
did- we met with Bob, once.
Yeah,
And, but it was after I
Yeah.
made up the draft and gave it to him, and then he made some changes and came back to the next time we met and said, blah, 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 and. I told him I didn't have the, you know, it showed all the figures, I didn't do all that, he said, don't worry about that.
He apologized for not being able to sign. He was supposed to sign in today for this meeting.
that's okay.
And he wasn't able to,
Okay.
so I'll reach out to him afterwards and get some
Okay.
information.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know what the timetable on this is, it really is, because this might be something that we could take up. We may take up next month, may not have to take it up next month, if you guys can take all the time you need to prepare something that's fairly final.
It's part of the fire, is they're connected with the fire city council or not?
Yeah.
They are, so.
Well, so something,
A time frame.
we should find out, I mean, if something needs to be turned in,
Yeah,
and doesn't have to be, you know, the whole works, but it's enough to meet the requirement, whatever it is, do that. You know, it's kind of a simplified, just to have a document there, if you have to do that, I mean, you have to do that, but
yeah,
I think we want to have something that's gonna guide our policies. more specifically going forward, rather than just being a compliance document.
Yeah.
So if compliance document, make sure that gets in, whatever it has to be, but then work on the policy document in more detail so we get more guidance going forward. Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments, suggestions, advice? I guess the meeting at 12:21 adjourned. Thank you.